Welcome to E4M Tech Talk, which is the intersection of advertising and technology. And today I'm very excited to have, today we have Prabhvir, who heads Samsung Ads in India. And we are very lucky to have him because Samsung Ads is exactly at the intersection of advertising and technology. So thank you so much for taking out the time.
Thank you.
And so first, let's just take off one thing from our KRA and talk about artificial intelligence and how Samsung Ads is sort of integrating it into its entire process.
So let me tell you specifically what's happening with the TV device. And I just spoke about this earlier today as well. See, one of the things, one of the big challenges with TV is that today you have so much choice in terms of what you really want to watch and where you really want to watch that particular content. Getting to that piece of information is getting a little bit of a task on the TV.
Right.
And what we have seen is that more and more people are spending more time discovering what they really want to watch. So when we look at artificial intelligence, and we look at the TV as a device specifically, what we are looking or turning towards AI for is to help bring relevant content to the screen as quickly as possible, and reducing that time to discover. And I think some of the newer TVs that we have seen are able to achieve that as well. Because TV still primarily used for entertainment, and you really want to get your entertainment as quickly as possible. With the evolution of AI, voice-assisted search, etc., on some of the newer TVs, you will definitely see AI playing the role of getting or making content discovery far more seamless than what it is today.
Right. And of course, Samsung Ads is sort of pushing the envelope in India, and you've introduced a lot of new exciting formats, whether it's interactive ads or shoppable ads or even CTA ads. So could you talk about how that space is developing and what Samsung Ads especially is, bringing to the table?
So this whole space is very, very new, both from the end of the end user, as well as from the lens of an advertiser or brand. We are also equally mindful that if you tend to show too many intrusive advertising, the user do not appreciate that. So what we have been testing over the last 2-3 years is just a more seamless integration into advertising on TVs, which are non-intrusive, simple and straightforward, and something that both ends of the spectrum can easily relate to and respond to, should that be. As we stargaze into the future, that's where there are a lot of possibilities which are unlocking. Definitely one is this whole space of interactive ads. Advertisers and users do want to bring in some level of actionability or connectivity beyond just memorizing or recalling that particular ad. At the same time, because shopping has gone digital, there's growing demand of integrations between the devices on which you see ads and devices on which you can transact looking at those ads. So we are definitely looking at a future where some of this shoppable content or shoppable ads will come into play. We spoke about AI before this, right? Definitely, we are talking 3, 4, 5 years out. We are looking at an era where advertising or product placement will become natively part of that content. And that will all get driven by some of this AI technology, which automatically recognizes the scene on the screen and then places product on the fly in that particular frame of that particular content playing on that TV. So these are some of the future states, but where we are today is we're maintaining a very steady state, a state which people can relate to, both on the user side as well as the advertising side, and also make it more, I would say, TV historically was not real-time measurable, but that is one of those plays we are making over and above, bringing newer ad formats on Samsung Ads.
Right. And India has always been sort of an outlier across, in many different ways. But Samsung Ads is a global company, and I'm curious how you're sort of tilting your sensibilities, your global sensibilities for a market like India.
So one of the things we have done is all of Samsung Ads is actually localized at the first instance. So whatever services we have to offer, whether that's on the TV, on Samsung TV Plus, or even the ads business, is largely localized to the context and the environment that the business operates in. So over the last 5 years, our key initiatives have been focused on making sure that whatever we do for India is for India first. And if there are some global replicable successes, which has least resistance or path to resistance, and does not have to go through many hoops to launch it, we have been able to bring that. One such example is which should come out in the next 2-3 weeks time, is what we call as actionable ads.
Right.
These ads basically allow you to integrate a trackable QR code into the ads running on the TV.
Right.
It was a very simplistic solution. In India, people use QR code as part of TV ads.
Yeah.
What we have been able to now bring to India is, if you see these ads on our TV, you can actually connect the impression delivery. If there was a QR code scan,
Okay.
and if it went on a third-party device, you can actually connect that entire journey.
Nice.
And
okay.
say, is TV influencing a purchase downstream or not?
Right.
So I would say 90-95% of our business is localized to the Indian context and the environment we operate in. 5% is some global best practices that we bring in.
And I'm curious, as in India in turn also has helped inform some global practices, which maybe you went India first with something and you're like, this could actually potentially work in other markets as well.
So I would say, because the device is the nature of the device is such that what we have been able to share is that India has leapfrogged this whole viewership behavior.
Right.
Where in India we're talking about 10% Samsung TVs watching linear content, 90% streaming.
Right.
In the US, it is still almost 40% is watching streaming, 60% is watching broadcast, and they're slowly migrating.
Right.
So when they look at consumer behavior and say, hey, what would US be when US becomes 60, 70, 80% streaming and a small portion broadcast? India is definitely being part of those conversations where the insights of how a streaming user uses the device also interacts with the ads is fueling what future products the US market brings on board.
And of course, the conversation around digital privacy, etc., is sort of increasing. It's like there's a new conversation every day. And I'm curious, because you work, with for the users, but with advertisers. So how do you sort of, make sure that everything is like, kosher and like privacy is being taken care of?
So one of the good things we have done, and this was, I would say, gold standard of privacy. One is, no PII data or personally identifiable information is ever linked to any advertising or content that's been seen on the television or played on the television. And when we say PII, it basically means your email ID, your phone number, etc. We also have to be equally sensitive that TV is a multi-user device.
Yes.
Right? It could be used by the adults as well as the kids in the house. And in India and many parts of the world, there are some very strict guidelines of what kind of ads can be played on those television. So privacy is the center of our ad ecosystem, where there are certain guardrails. There is no exchange of anything which personally and individually identifies you. But at the same time, to be compliant with transparency, measurement protocols, we do expose what we call as a device ID, which is anonymous and not linked to anything else.
Right.
So there's a fair balance between what the digital advertiser or a brand marketer wants in terms of, can I track viewability, can I track brand safety, can I track legitimacy of the impressions, which requires certain information to be shared. But at the same time, we're guarding anything to do with who was it, what does he do or she do, what's the family household. Those information never exchange hands. And that will remain true. And I think with the launch of the Data Privacy and Digital Act for India, or Protection Act for India, I think we are already compliant and ready to make sure that any sensitive information or information which can be personally identifiable never crosses the lines of advertising.
Right. And as CTV becomes sort of more central to a lot of brand strategies, because it's an engaged audience, and you are offering them the capabilities to really measure how their ads are performing. Are there any new trends you see emerging within India, or is it more like building on the foundations you guys have built?
It is still building on the foundation, and over the last 7 or 8 months, where we have met CMOs of, every possible vertical with every possible budget size or marketing spend size, as we say. What is clearly standing out in all our conversations is that CTV is still not critical mass. And when I'm saying critical mass, you need to cross 150 million device base to be considered critical mass. So our advertisers, or people who are advertising with Samsung ads, are the ones who really want to reach out to household with disposable income, because the TVs operate at a certain price point. And there's time and time again we've been able to prove that if you're reaching out to Samsung household, they do have a disposable income to buy your particular product. So at an overall stage, we are still, I would say, in the early adoption phase, where there are brands who are adopting early and learning about the nuances of this particular platform, versus the US, which is, I would say, past the stage of early adoption and it's getting very closer to maturity.
Right.
We are still 2-3 years out before mass.
Okay.
Once we reach critical mass, we will have higher adoption. And what I mean by higher adoption is more brands advertise on this platform. But where we are today, I think we are still in the early stages.
Right. And it's quite interesting, because when we first started speaking, like about a year or so ago, like the number of CTVs is, I mean, like you said, it still hasn't reached critical mass, but it's still
growing
explosively, one would say. So I'm interested that you think like it'll still take a couple of years, because some projections say that, maybe by 2026 we'll have reached that. So, I mean, do you see that possibility?
I'm reasonably optimistic, but let me break it down by numbers. And this is, I think, important for all our viewers to really understand, because a lot of people say we have 225 million households with television. We have 50 to 60 million connected TVs. Where is that? Where's the number breaking down? So one of the things I've learned over the last 5 years is that when we are counting connected TVs, we're not counting lifetime. We are basically counting connected TVs from 2015, 2016 onwards, when these devices were actually being made available in India. TV also has a life cycle of 7 to 8 years before somebody goes and buy a new television. And there were 2-3 phenomena which played a key role in higher adoption the last 5 years. One was definitely COVID, but also a significant portion of our audience upgrading to a newer device. So that is what is fueling the growth of CTV adoption. What is also happening in parallel is every TV that you now buy in the store or online, whenever you buy it, is a TV which comes with built-in capabilities of connected to the internet. And that is also what the user is asking, that, hey, these are the apps I use to watch content on my phone, and I would only want to buy a TV which have those with apps. So there is, I would say, a combination of things which is driving the growth of it. And therefore, the lens that we use to calculate addressable base tells us about 50 to 60 million TVs. The total number of shipments that happens in a year in India is about 15 million TVs which are shipped out of the country. And of that 15 million TVs, about 80 to 90% are actually sold in the market. So if you simply say, okay, 15 million TVs have to be sold every year, and of that 15 million TVs, only 10 to 12 million are actually sold out, it is still 2-3 years out before we get to 100 million. So while I love to be an optimistic, and I say, okay, maybe the 100 million happens in 2026, the factors which can potentially drive that would be a change in price points in some of these TVs, make it more affordable or better financing scheme. But if you look at the broader picture, and if we look at the growth trend of just the TV shipments, it's largely flat. And it's still, from my lens, at least 2-3 years out, 2027, 28, before we get to that 100 million mark.
And speaking of things that have reached critical mass, do you have a favorite AI model that you chat with, or does it change every morning according to the AI leaderboard?
For me, I've been playing with Perplexity. I've been playing definitely with Gemini as well as ChatGPT. And I think depending on the use case that I'm toying with, I do land up using some of these products independently. I would say AI has still not become an integral part of my day-to-day life, but AI definitely is helping look at problems from different perspectives, because a lot of times when a problem comes your way, you're only looking at from what you understand. But I think where AI assistance helps me sometimes is, am I missing a point when I'm addressing a certain problem? And that's where a combination of these tools do help us, or help me rather, more independently to say, am I getting a holistic view of the problem I'm solving, or am I missing out something?
Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time. And it's been a long time coming. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.